Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Welcome into the post-game show. The Philadelphia 76ers beat the Los Angeles Clippers to continue this absolute tear that they're on at the Wells Fargo Center. The team looked so solid. It was a full team effort. Ben Simmons, a triple-double, very aggressive, 22 field goal attempts. That was the most impressive thing. The guy walks away with a triple-double, and I think the most impressive part of his game was just the fact that he had 22 field goal attempts. He finished with 26 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists. His defense was amazing. Joel Embiid, talk about a guy with controversy surrounding his name before the game starts. He puts up those Instagram posts. All the fans are freaking out. He even gets boos. He gets boos when mentioned at the starting lineup. Now, it was mixed with cheers as well, but just the fact that Joel Embiid was getting booed is crazy. He had the fight with Marcus Morris. He ended up having that monster block, and then Matisse Thybulle on the other side hits a three. Embiid celebrates, too, after that little scuffle with Marcus Morris. He gets the crowd involved. He even does a little shimmy. You heard trust the process chants when he was at the free throw line at times. It was a weird dynamic with Joel Embiid because you could sense that the fans were frustrated with the moves he made over the last 24 hours, but still embraced everything that he did out on the floor. And after the game, post-game, he was getting interviewed and he said, listen, if I can take it, so can they. If they can dish it, they better be able to take it. And he said he's getting back to his old ways. He tried this whole nonsense of not being Joel Embiid. Well, he's going to go back to having fun and being him because it was affecting him. So we'll see what that means moving forward for Joel Embiid. But Ben was great. Joel was great. Josh Richardson in the fourth quarter. Are you kidding me? Josh fourth quarter Richardson stepped up to the plate like that. 17 points in the fourth quarter. Brett stated post-game. Incredible. Al Horford getting moved to the bench. Now, that is clearly the hottest topic when it comes to this team. You paid this guy a ton of money, but they tried. They tried to make this thing work, and clearly it wasn't. Now, I thought he had a strong game off the bench. He ended up having 9 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, but it's perfect because when Joel Embiid leaves the floor, obviously, there is a drop-off, but the drop-off is Al Horford. That's still someone so solid. That's a starting center caliber guy. It makes so much sense to put him on the bench and to be able to rotate this thing. The spacing's effective. For all the people that claim that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will never work in this league together. Yeah, they can. You just watched it. Joel Embiid had 26 and 9, 13 free throws. He was a dominating force out there. So was Ben Simmons. They both were. Now, at times, Ben wasn't running point. Ben was all over the place being so versatile. But you can do that with him. That's how special he is. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to this game. But before we do, let's hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Are you looking to go to a Sixers game, maybe a Flyers game, or any game out there, even a concert? If you use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page, you will receive $20 off of your total purchase. It's a no-brainer to use the promo code BROADS today. Also, my new apparel is out. The link is in the description. Check it out. They're flying off the walls. And lastly, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Broads81. Now that I have a credential to go to the games through 97.3 ESPN, I am pumping out content pregame. I'm getting interviews postgame. And I'm live tweeting during the game as well. So make sure you go ahead and follow me on Twitter. But back to the game. I thought it was a full team effort. Everyone had their role. The one person who really struggled in this game, it was Korkmaz, and I was all for giving him a nod to get into the starting lineup after the last 2 games where he was putting up 30-plus points. I even tweeted, I was looking forward to Korkmaz, and I truly meant that. I wasn't being sarcastic because of my history with not really liking Furkan Korkmaz, or not so much not liking him. And when I say that, I'm talking about in basketball perspective, not as a human being. But yeah, over the last few seasons, I was anti-Furkan Korkmaz, but I was looking forward to seeing what he would be able to do with that lineup, with spacing on the floor, and he put up a goose egg, and it was not pretty. It was so ugly, actually, that Glenn Robinson III started the third quarter, and I liked the spark out of Glenn Robinson III. You had him and Alec Burks play around 12 to 14 minutes as a whole. Now, that's individually. I believe Robinson had 14 minutes and Burks had 12. So that's about the amount of run they had. And we need more time to really see what they are made of. But Glenn Robinson III is definitely making my eyebrows raise because there's some spark to his game. Alec Burks doesn't know as much as Glenn Robinson III does because clearly he was here before. But it's going to take some time for both of them to reach a comfortable level as a whole with this team. And now the squad has a 9-day break. They get to rest up. Some of them get to compete in the All-Star game. Ben and Joel will be facing off against each other, so that will be definitely entertaining. Now, when you look at Paul George, he struggled 3 of 15. Kawhi had 30 points, but he took over 20 shots. And yeah, 30 points is good, no doubt about it. We could look at what Ben Simmons did on the defensive side of the floor and made Kawhi earn every little thing that he had. Landry Shamet, though, he was firing, especially in that third quarter. He came out knocking down shots, keeping the Clippers involved. It was tied at halftime, 54-54. After the Sixers came out to a really hot first quarter. Not hot first quarter, but good first quarter. The second quarter got ugly, and it was trending to be super hideous until Ben Simmons became aggressive late. It was tied at half, and from there, the Sixers went up double digits in the third. Clippers went on a run. Of course, a team like the Clippers are going to go on a run, and you can thank Landry Shamet for that. How about him knocking down threes after threes after threes after threes, finishing with 19 points? He was a really solid pick, and he was very entertaining when he was here. But I also like Tobias Harris. And speaking of Tobias Harris, let's talk about a monster jam, because he had a monster jam in this basketball game. One of those that makes you jump back. Whoa, Tobias. He was flirting with a triple-double in the third quarter, but never got any more assists from there. So he finished with, when you look at Tobias Harris, 17, 12, and 5, and he was plus 18. By the way, going back to Josh Richardson and that dominant fourth quarter that he had, he was plus 24. That's good. I mean, that's really good. Josh Richardson in the fourth quarter was a special player. It was fun to watch this team really play good basketball, play with energy, play with passion, and not like we didn't expect them to do that on their home floor, because they always do, right? It's obvious that they always do. That's why they have the record that they have. They lost 2 basketball games at the Wells Fargo Center so far this season. That's mind-blowing. That really is. It's nuts. Why can't this translate to things away from the Wells Fargo Center? Why can't it translate? I will say this, though. It's obvious that putting Al Horford on the bench changes the dynamic. Not only that, but you can get different rotations and totally different looks, and you can play around with people. You can maybe throw Alec Burks in there, or you throw Glenn Robinson III in there, or Matisse Thybulle, or Furkan, or whatever. There's just so many different rotations that you can now utilize and see if it's a factor, see if it's effective. Brett has somewhat more toys to play with just based off of putting Al Horford on the bench. And I think Tobias had such a strong game because he was playing the 4. I talked about this before, but the way the Sixers are moving the basketball around, it's giving the 4 spot the wide open looks. The problem is that wide open look was going to Al Horford consistently, and he's not that type of stretch 4 where he should be shooting that many threes. Tobias Harris is a little bit more versatile. He spaces the floor more. He can dribble drive. He can use that little floater, that mid-range game, and he can shoot the 3. It's just a better fit for Tobias to be playing the 4. I'm proud of this team. I'm proud of them. They needed to get this sort of swagger back. Now, it's not fully there. They still need to find ways to win away from this building. But based off of where it was after the 4-game stretch on the road, to hit break with some confidence, that's what they needed to do. It just comes down to getting some confidence back in and realizing that this thing isn't over, all right? It's been bad. It's been an underwhelming season so far, but it's not over. And maybe putting Al on the bench is what allows this thing to open up and give that team confidence and to open the floor up for Ben Simmons, open the floor up for Joel Embiid. They work together. It can happen. They just beat the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both playing, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid going off, being X factors. It can happen. But I love what the team did defensively. They held this squad to, 102, 103 points. Paul George could not get anything going. I watched Matisse Thybulle swat a basketball 10 rows up by the perimeter. The defense was sick to watch. But the best play of the night has to be after the pushing match between Embiid and Marcus Morris, which you knew was going to happen because they have a history. They have a problem together. They do not like each other. So I figured at some point there would be some sort of tussle or chirping or getting in each other's face. Well, it happened. After that, the play by Embiid to block the ball and that Matisse Thybulle 3. The place went absurd. It erupted. The Wells Fargo Center was absolutely screaming at such a high level. I couldn't even hear anything. My whole body was shaking just from everybody going nuts. It was a great moment. It was the best moment of the game, without a doubt. And I love the way that this team responded from that ugly stretch. They played inspired basketball. And that's why one of the big conversations that I have had all through this season is when they do play good teams, for the most part, they get up, they compete, and they hang with the good teams. I mean, that's telling. I know it's frustrating when they lose to bad teams on the road, when they lose to the Hawks, to the Wizards, to the Cavs, to the bad teams, to the Orlando Magic. I get the frustration because it costs you seedings, and it costs you where you're going to fall in the playoffs. But I do know that they can compete with these teams. Now we got to see if they can compete with these teams on the road with Al Horford on the bench. And that's the next step. And that's the next question. Can they? Will they be able to? One of the things I liked out of Brett Brown after the game, he was talking about Al Horford and the professionalism of Al Horford. It was a great conversation between them two. They had to fix something. They had to try something new. It's been 50-plus games. And the way that Al Horford handled it, it was nothing but being a professional, understanding what's going on, willing to change, willing to try something new for the better of the team. And I think players respect the hell out of that. I think players like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid realize the maturity of that decision and understanding. And it makes the locker room come together. It makes the team flow as one when they realize that someone is making a decision which affects them when it comes to playing the game, but he knows that it's better for everybody else. It's better for the guys in the locker room, for the coaching staff, for the fan base. After getting paid all that money, after being a starter all this time, first time coming off the bench since rookie year. All right, let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's do it. And it was rewarding. One of the things that I feel fans will realize is when it comes down to the postseason and when the game slows down, and when I mean slows down, I mean slows down, Al Horford will be a difference maker. He will be a difference maker. You will need Al Horford in the playoffs. Not just about what he will be able to provide when Joel Embiid is on the bench, but when it comes to veteran leadership, teaching everybody else. It's going to be something this team is truthfully going to have to lean on. When Joel Embiid left the floor last year, they got blown out by $25 billion. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because there's plenty of regular season basketball left and there's plenty of messing around with the lineup. But just remember that. Remember when Al Horford struggled in the regular season with this team. Just remember all those moments when he ends up making plays in the postseason, because I do believe that is when he will be cherished the most. So, I think it is time to take calls from the 24/7 Anytime Hotline. You can leave your phone call at, hold on, wait for it, anytime, calling 856-442-9805, or you can text in. If you are from overseas, not from the United States, let's say, you can email an MP3 file to sportsandbroads@gmail.com. I actually have a bunch of people doing that because they're not from the U.S., so they can't call that 856-442-9805 number. And I'm here for it. I will embrace it. Don't feel like you're bothering me. Send those MP3 files after the game if you would like to be utilized on the post-game show. So let's kick this bad boy off.
Hey bro, it's Mark from Melbourne. Mate, very solid win going into the break. Really happy. I think for two guys who allegedly can't play together, Ben and Joe were fantastic, both going for 26. Ben hits the triple-double. Obviously the big thing was, Horford coming off the bench. I think that's what energised everyone. I think Tobias was solid. Jay Rich really stepped up in the fourth. Obviously Ferk put up a 0, the big donut, but I think that we've got so much depth at the wings now. Interesting to see who your thoughts. I'm sure you'll cover who you think she'll start. Do we go with Matisse? Do we go with Ferk? Now we've got Burks and Robinson, so I think there's just a lot of depth now at that 3 position that we can use. So, mate, it'll be great. We'll enjoy the break, and I think it's going to be a very solid second half or second part of the season leading up to the playoffs. So, mate, keep doing what you're doing. Love you all the way from Australia. Speak soon.
Thank you so much for the phone call. Now, when it comes to the starting lineup, I don't think Furkan Korkmaz is the best option moving forward, but I also think sometimes Matisse Thybulle hits a wall, or sometimes he doesn't have as much impact as I'd like him to have when he does start. It's a toss-up between the two. It just depends on who's going to have the better game that night, because they're both capable of changing the game in different ways. I think I would lean towards Matisse Thybulle, but Furkan coming off the bench seems to be the better fit for me. So if I had to choose, I think I would slide Matisse Thybulle into that starting lineup and have Furkan come off the bench, because he can't be playing starter-type minutes. I know he went off and had some games, but he also, like the last game, it was against the Chicago Bulls. And the game before that, it was, against the Memphis Grizzlies. And yeah, they're not the worst team in the world, but when you start seeing these Clipper squads, and if we're talking postseason basketball, which was always my fear with Furkan Korkmaz, I don't know if he's going to be able to handle that. I would like to see Matisse Thybulle in the starting rotation over Furkan Korkmaz. You can throw Shake Milton in the conversation, but I just feel like, well, here's the thing. Offensively, Shake can do more than Matisse Thybulle, but there's something to be said about that defensive intensity Matisse plays with, and I think it's very important.
Hey bro, it's Ben from the UK, and just when you thought you had this team figured out, they go and put a performance like that, which was absolutely exceptional. I'm calling you at, 2:45 in the morning here in the UK, and I couldn't be happy after seeing that performance. You move Al to the 6th man on the bench, whatever you want to call it, and this team is a completely different team. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself because, we're always good at home. But that was exceptional. I always had the Clippers down as the teams to beat. Just in the NBA in general, I have them down as the best team in the NBA, and we performed brilliantly. You had Josh hitting shots, clutch shots in the fourth. Tobias came out good. Simmons was just fantastic. So was Embiid, who said they couldn't work together. The mainstream media getting it wrong yet again. Who's shocked about that, let's be honest. But from top to bottom, this team was exceptional. We're expecting more from the bench, and I think that will come as soon as, Burks and Robinson get more acclimatized to the team and to how we want to play basketball. But that was just fantastic. A real pick-me-up after the controversies, I guess, of the last 2 days. I wouldn't put too much stock in it, but I guess you could call it controversies. But, it's just been fantastic. I must admit, at the moment, I've been drinking since 6 p.m. UK time, so that's a good 8 hours, so perhaps this might be a bit ineligible to listen to or inaudible or wherever else, but this has been fantastic. I'm over the moon. I mean, happy days really. But what I would like to know quickly before I end this is who would you want from the buyout market? I mean, for me, I would want another 3-and-D player that could play the 4, and then another point guard. I mean, there's rumors of Tyler Johnston, Langston Galloway, maybe Reggie Jackson at the 4. I don't know who's available at the moment.
Yeah, I'd have to see more of what the options are when it comes to that buyout market, so I don't know off the top of my head right now. When talking about the controversy that you mentioned with Joel Embiid and these pictures, and he wants to go to Miami and all, I said just relax. That's all trash. It's just him trolling. It doesn't mean anything. You can't say that Joel Embiid was doing anything other than just trolling the fan base, having fun, thinking he's funny. Like, that's all he was doing. None of that meant that he wanted out of this city. He can't stand the fans. He's bothered by everyone. Sure, don't get me wrong. Is he bothered and emotional because of maybe the way that he was treated over the last few games by this fan base? Yeah, probably. That's what forced him to do it. But it doesn't mean he really wanted to leave. Everyone just had to calm down. That's who Joel Embiid is. And he even reiterated that in the post-game press conference when talking about the fans having to be able to take it if they can dish it. It was just all fun and games. There was no reason to get all upset and all worried thinking that he wanted to leave this city and go to Miami to go play with Jimmy Butler.
Hey, bros, it's Eddie. Just wanted to say, just finished the Clippers game, and oh my God. Fork did absolutely nothing, but that game was just great between Morris and Embiid and everybody. My question to you is, do you think Horford should stay on the bench? Because that spacing was incredible tonight, and it left so many guys open and able to drive, especially Ben. So what do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you see the success the team had in this game against a very solid opponent, there's no doubt in my mind that Al Horford has to stay coming off the bench, and I think that that's fine. I think that there is a way to utilize this roster with him coming off of the bench. It can still be very effective, even though he's getting paid a lot of money, and that is something that will be talked about. You sign this big man, and you sign Al Horford to this monster contract, and he's playing limited minutes off the bench. I get it. It doesn't look great. The optics aren't good when you take a look at that. But what's more important right now? What it looks like, or when I'm talking about what it looks like, I'm not talking about the basketball part of it. I'm talking about the signing of the contract and having a man come off the bench. That's what I mean. What's more important, what that looks like, or how this team gels as a whole, how this team gets utilized properly, how this team can get the most out of their roster? I'd say that's more important. So that is the job that Brett Brown needs to do. He needs to do whatever puts this team in the best position to win. When Ben Simmons can get more space, when Joel Embiid can get more space to work with, let's do that. Let's roll with that. Because for the first 50-plus games, Al Horford in the mix did not work properly. It did not work as smooth as we thought. But it doesn't mean it's an absolute disaster. There's a way to get this going right and have him on the bench at the same time.
Hey, bro, what's going on? What a great win for the Sixers team tonight. Ben Simmons, unbelievable. 26, 12, and 10. He shot the ball 22 times. When was the last time we've seen Ben Simmons this aggressive? Joel Embiid taking the criticism, 26 points, 9 rebounds. He played very well. I thought Josh Richardson was excellent, especially in the fourth quarter. 21 points for him. Tobias Harris played pretty solid. cooled down in the second half, had a great first half. And, Brett Brown finally moves Al Horford to the bench, and it pays dividends. I've been screaming at him to move him to the bench. He finally does. I thought he played very well off the bench. Furkan Korkmaz finally came down to earth. I knew it wasn't going to last for Furkan Korkmaz. He couldn't get anything going tonight.
Yeah, he couldn't. He could not get anything going tonight. And to be fair, he's been definitely a spark plug that this team has needed, and he is the best three-point shooter on this squad. Do I think he's going to have consistent 0-point nights? No, but one of my concerns with him was when he went up against good talent, when the game was a little bit slower, and it gets slower than this, he will have problems. And he had wide open looks and he wasn't able to execute, and that's what I think hurts the most. He had the wide open looks. You got to be able to cash in. You got to be able to find ways, and specifically it was that third quarter where the Sixers ended up going up by double digits. The Clippers made their run back, but they made their run back because of, one, Landry Shamet for the Clippers, and two, the fact that Furkan wasn't hitting his shots. A couple of them hit the back rim and hit the side rim. You got to be able to knock down the wide open looks. That's what's going to be able to keep him on the floor. And when he's not able to do that, when it's not his night, you got to go with someone else. And that's exactly what Brett Brown decided to do. Let's take our last call.
Bro, what's going on, man? Hey, just what a great game, man. Congratulations on getting to cover them and all that stuff. And listen, it was funny because I saw that Horford was going to be starting off the bench, and it's funny because earlier in the day I was thinking, like, would it really hurt? Like, would Horford be in the right mindset to, accept the bench position? And it's nothing really to be ashamed of. And I think, after listening to Brett Brown talking to the media about how, he was totally cool with it and how Brett Brown felt like he could maximize Al Horford's potential. I think that's what we saw. I mean, listen, I know that 9 points isn't a lot. He had like 6 rebounds, but having that kind of leadership coming off, it didn't really feel like we ever really slacked off at any particular time. I mean, they did come up close, right? Landry Shamet looked like a heat-seeking missile, but I think this could be potentially a really good solution for games to come. So we'll have to see what happens when they actually go on the road, though.
Absolutely. The road thing is a difference. It's nice to feel good about this win, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. You shouldn't say, well, this was great, but it was only at home. When you beat a team like the Clippers, they can do damage on the road. They can easily beat you in your building. So to take care of business against them, it's still very solid. And for how low it got for this locker room, you'll take anything right now. So there's no reason to be disappointed because this game wasn't on the road. But it is true that they do need to find ways to win away from this building as well. And I think when you have the flow going right now with Al Horford on the bench and the professionalism by him to allow that to happen, maybe that will change the way this team plays as a whole, which will lead to more victories on a floor that isn't here in South Philadelphia. So, all around, to summarize this bad boy, Ben was great, magnificent, really. Joel was awesome. Tobias was awesome. Al Horford coming off the bench was a great role for him. Josh Richardson in the fourth quarter. Who's your daddy? What's he do? This was a full team effort. Got to be proud of him. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.